this is an article, actually just sort of a post I found from Floodlit. If you're not familiar with Floodlit, it is an organization that tracks anybody who is a member of the LDS Church who has been arrested for, an SA or a CSA kind of a crime. All the information they get is from, documented sources, legal sources. They do not operate on hearsay. They're very careful to make sure everything is very well documented. So this was something that I found particularly egregious, but not surprising. So I'm going to read this first part and then kind of skip through the others and get to what we're really going to talk about. So it says Floodlit has an update on, and again, I redacted all these names just because that's not what this story is about.
I'm not supposed to be able to read that name.
You can read it?
Yeah. Everybody can read it.
Where?
Well, right there. Let me guess. Is it Stephen Boyd?
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, it was in the article. That's weird. I can't see it on my side. I can't read it at all. How funny.
Okay, we can't see it then.
Yeah, all right. That's totally fine. Anyway, the point is that it was not about this perpetrator. It's going to be about the letter that his bishop wrote for him. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. It wasn't redacted anywhere else. I just did it. So Floodlit has an update on this individual, a Mormon member and 1991 BYU graduate. I figured that makes him about my age because I finished my master's in 91. He pleaded guilty on April 7th of this year to felony enticement of a minor, but the court held the plea in abeyance, meaning that the person can avoid a conviction and harsher penalties if he complies to some terms. So it goes on to talk about what he did. I'll just kind of skip through that very quickly. Basically, a police officer posing as a 13-year-old girl. He, started chatting with him and arranged to meet. They exchanged pictures, this kind of a thing. So definitely he was all on board with this kind of activity, although it ended up being, of course, a police officer that he's talking to. You guys can go back and pause on those if you want to read the details. I don't know. Why do these guys keep doing it? Don't they know that almost everybody on these sites is a police officer? I don't understand that.
I'm not laughing at what he did. I'm just laughing that every one of those you can see Boyd, B-O-Y-D.
You know what? It's fly. The name is out there all over the place. I was just trying to make it so it wasn't so overtly about the person, but that's really funny because I literally can't see it. It looks completely solid black to me. I mean, maybe you need to go to the eye doctor. Anyway, on May 20th of 2025, the plea in abeyance took effect for 3 years, during which the individual must be on the Utah Sex Offender Registry. He was ordered to serve 90 days in the Utah County Jail, and he was given credit for 7 days. He is to report by June 2nd at 5 p.m., so I'm assuming this has already happened. If he complies with the terms of his plea in abeyance, he will not be convicted and will no longer be required to be a registered sex offender. Floodlit has seen similar cases where criminal convictions of guilty pleas were expunged in Utah. Expungement would mean the court system would treat a perpetrator as if the alleged crime was never prosecuted, and a search for criminal records would come up empty. Do you want to say anything about that before we get to the next slide, RFM? Just so everybody understands, maybe explain what a plea of abeyance is. Just if he's good, if he does what they say, they're going to kind of expunge his record and it'll be as if it never happened. Oh, what?
What this looks like to me is that they're basically continuing the matter for 3 years, having him go to jail, but he can't do a sentence. I mean, you have to be convicted to do a sentence. I'm sure they have some kind of creative way around it.
Right.
But they're continuing this for 3 years under conditions. And if he complies with the conditions, it will be dismissed. That's how I read it.
Right. So, I mean, this is standard, but what was unusual here, or maybe not so unusual, unfortunately, and I'm going to have Bill or RFM read this. This is a letter written by the perpetrator's bishop.
Another one of these. When will they ever learn?
When will they ever learn? And it's interesting because I looked the bishop up. Oh my gosh, that means that everything I blacked out you can see. It's totally fine. It's on record.
It's too small for me.
I was trying to be, I was trying to be less overt. Anyway, his bishop has been in his position since August of 23, and this crime happened in November of 23. So he has been, he's been there all along. He's been the bishop of this individual. So RFM, do you want to read this? This is a letter from the bishop to the judge, basically pleading that he be treated lightly.
This is a guy who was on his way for a meet and greet with what he thought was a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the details are pretty sketchy. If you want to scroll back, you guys can all read them. But, it's exactly that. Pictures and determining, how old are you? And can I pick you up from school? And, it was pretty horrific.
Yeah. They have to meet all the elements of the offense.
Yep.
It says, Dear Judge Peterson, May 1st, 2025. So it's
Yeah, this
just a
just
month
happened.
ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I am currently serving as a ward bishop in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'll bet President Nelson is glad he's using the full name. A year ago, blank, a member of my ward, shared with me the difficult path he's been on throughout his life, culminating in the unfortunate events of November 2023. Since that time, it's been my privilege to meet with blank, this guy, my privilege, regularly to offer support and assess his progress. I've been consistently impressed by the specific and intentional efforts he has made to change his habits, attitude, and outlook over the past 18 months. One wonders how he's judging that. At other times in his adult life, he has struggled with depression, isolation, and negativity. While he would occasionally show improvement, those attitudes would soon return. However, the past 18 months have been a stark contrast to any other time in his life. His family members have repeatedly shared with me how much his daily attitude and habits have changed, and that these changes are sincere and have persisted for longer than ever before. He is more positive, quicker to help others, and shows resilient mental health. He is more patient, more forgiving, and truly happier. By the way, this whole letter, it just becomes, look, if this guy had sentenced him like pretty much anybody else, this letter would be distasteful. But this is in the context of this bishop writing a letter and this guy getting a real sweetheart deal. I don't know what the facts are in this case. They're usually pretty cut and dried because you got an undercover cop on the other end of the Craigslist ad pretending to be a 13-year-old and reeling him in. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's why usually they get the goods on them, and that's why they volunteer their age so that they have to show the guy knows or at least believes that they're under the age of consent, those kinds of things. Right. So usually these are kind of open and shut cases, but he's getting a really, really good deal, and it may have been based on, in part, on this letter. And if that's the case, then it becomes more concerning that the bishop is writing a letter on behalf of the guy who's being sentenced. Of course, I was going to say he's not writing on behalf of the victim, but in these strange cases, there is no victim.
In this case, but I've never seen a church leader land on the side of the victim.
Right. Even when there are victims.
Even when there are
no victim, it's because this is a fictional 13-year-old who's created by the law enforcement in order to reel in people like this.
Right. And thank God there's no victim. And this procedure is trying to stop there from being an actual victim by putting this person away over, the bishop's objection.
Yeah. Well, the bishop got his way, I think. I believe the intentional... You want me to keep reading this?
Yes.
I believe the intentional steps he has taken in the past 18 months led to these genuine changes. He has benefited greatly from regular visits to a counselor specializing in addiction, and to my knowledge has completely avoided negative behaviors since the event of November 2023. Is he talking about porn addiction? He hasn't said anything about any drugs. He has also taken specific steps to strengthen himself spiritually. By the way, porn addiction is something that does exist, but the church tends to see it in any use of pornography as an addiction as opposed to a non-addictive use. He has also taken specific steps to strengthen himself spiritually and stay close to his heavenly Father through frequent prayer and scripture study. He shows complete willingness to positive change. He is a blessing in the lives of his long line redacted.
Yeah, I think they're talking about relatives, names of relatives. He's a blessing to his family.
I thought maybe it was Wednesday evening.
Is he a blessing to his family?
What?
I'm just sorry. It just makes me sick.
Yeah. He is a blessing in the lives of his Wednesday evening bowling league. He is a hard worker and has recently been successful as an entrepreneur as well as an employee. It's my strong opinion that a heavy sentence for him would have a severely negative impact on him on something as well as on his blank, his wife, and blank. His could be daughter, I don't know. His blank's career as a youth counselor would also be severely negative. What?
He has a relative, it looks like, who is a youth counselor. And the bishop's saying if his relative is known to be associated with this, perpetrator, that can have a very negative effect on his family members' business. So it seems to be about everybody
It's a very
in the
short
family
word.
and everybody's business, except for, well, no victim in this case, but these victims exist.
Finally, his behavior since November 2023 is a testament to the positive impact he is already making. I strongly believe that the likelihood of reoffending is as low as it could possibly be. Thank you for considering this letter. Sincerely. Now, the problem with this is that, I mean, if the guy is my problem with his letter is if the judge is a Mormon.
Yeah. It'll have sway. It'll have weight.
I think it's more likely to have more sway than it would otherwise. So he gets a really good deal. And this letter, how'd you get a hold of this letter, by the way, Rebecca? Great reporting as usual.
Yeah, Floodlit had posted it a while ago, and I was kind of keeping it on the back burner, but I just thought, there have been so many cases like this lately, and I, off the top of my head, can think of several more people I know personally, even when the church landed on the side of the church, even as far as like walking into court and family members seeing church representatives sitting on the side of the perpetrator, not the victim. And I don't know what that's about, but I just thought this was, and I don't know what the profession of this bishop is. I could probably look it up, but, is he qualified to say he has such a little chance of ever reoffending, or, he's a blessing, just the verbiage. But you're right. It completely, I think, could manipulate the court system here in Utah. So anyway, I just thought, and then Floodlit goes on to say, Floodlit has obtained dozens of similar letters from Mormon bishops and stake presidents to judges in support of men who were convicted of sex crimes, including child sex abuse. To date, we have not seen a single statement in any of these letters expressing sympathy or support for the victim. Yeah. And it's not just that, there is no even any sympathy. It's like, well, you're fine. You go over there. I've got to worry about the soul of this perpetrator because I can bring him back to Jesus. I can't. They just have absolutely no sympathy or support for these victims. And then again, it says, if you have any information about this case or his history in the Mormon church, please reach out to Floodlit. If you guys haven't gone on floodlit.org, it's really interesting. They even have, how the church has indexing? Floodlit has indexing, where you can go through records and you can input them in a way, that they can be searchable. And so there are tasks that you can do for Floodlit to help in this, just to have the information in one place. So I don't know, any thoughts on this bill? I know it's unpleasant, but I thought, here we have an actual letter. This is how they think. This is what they do.
Somebody said it in the comments, but it's so true. I've lived it. You tell the truth, you get excommunicated. You sexually assault people, you might get a recommendation letter from your bishop. It's insane what the church and its leaders, local and higher up, make space for in terms of a lack of ethics and morality, and what they punish people for. It just makes no sense unless the end goal is simply to perpetuate a falsehood and abuse.
Yep. That's all I have on that. Let's move on to something more positive, shall we, Bill?